Welcome to another episode of Trash Talk. I'm Jon-Bernard. This is Nick. We are the K-Roos Bros, giving you the combat sports news from around the world. Nick, UFC 316 fight week. It's been a bit quieter than I would have assumed. I've seen the embedded aren't getting the numbers as big as some other cards, like an Islam card or whatever it be. But Sugar Sean looks like he's locked in. How you feeling about this week?
I'm actually very excited because I am a big Merab fan. We've met him a couple times. He's been such a nice bloke towards us. And Sugar Sean, as much as people say he's the golden boy, he's the star boy, he's Dana's favourite fighter, I don't think he is. I just think he's kind of been given this fight because Merab has cleared out the division and there's no one else for him to fight. That's why, even though Sugar Sean lost and didn't really earn his rematch by beating another contender, he's been straight back into a title shot. And if you're Sugar Sean, you're not going to say no to this. But you're right, the hype for this card, I feel like because it happened so recently and Merab did dominate him, it does lack a bit of hype. But I feel like these cards usually over-deliver because Merab, entertaining, he's talking a lot of shit, he wants to get a finish. Sugar Sean, complete redemption to us, saying he's changed his life, he's no longer doing the Sugar Sean character. There's a lot going in that could happen.
Yeah, I think it's exact same build-up as the one on the Sphere, where they headlined last time. I was like, hey, is this going to really live up to the hype? But now we don't actually have the Sphere. But Merab's going in very confident. He went on Aljamain Sterling's podcast, and he said, look, Sugar Sean's got everything to lose, really. So it's all or nothing for him. It's actually going to be quite a challenge for him because he's got to be the champion, defend it, go out there, get the motivation to defend, but he thinks he's going to get through him. And that brings us to our hot take of the week. This week's hot take, you want to kick it off?
This week's hot take is Merab will get the finish this weekend against Sugar Sean. Now, if you look at Merab's career, he's had 12 wins in the UFC. 12 wins, 11 of them have been by unanimous decision.
Only one finish.
Only one finish. So if you're Merab, you have a 7.7% finish rate in the UFC.
That's pretty low.
That's why this is a hot take, because Merab isn't known for getting finishes. A lot of people on the internet may not be fans of his fighting style, very wrestling, very shoot and try and take down dominant. But I think this weekend, if you've listened to Merab talk, he wants to finish. He's very confident in the way he's been fighting. You even seen him talk about Umar. He said, look, I knew he was a great fighter, but I was that confident in my ability. I knew I was going to win. And this weekend, if you compare Umar to Sugar Sean, Umar is much, much better. And I know Sugar Sean's a great precision striker, but Merab, with his confidence as the champion, I think will get the job done and get the finish. I don't know if it'll be submission or by TKO, but Merab, he's just going to smother Sugar Sean, and I think he's going to get the finish.
Sugar Sean's been preparing. You know, I think he's the most locked in he's ever been. He's quit all his substances that he was on. He's quit all the bad habits. He says, I'm not going to repeat what they are because they're degenerate. But he looks like he's pretty locked in for this fight. And he's been watching, I don't know if you've been seeing the embedded, but he's been watching Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz too. You know, Conor McGregor got upset, had to come back, really locked in, and figured out a game plan to beat Nate Diaz. And that's what I think him and Tim Welch are trying to do, trying to figure out a game plan and how can we beat Merab. This guy's a cardio machine, a wrestling machine. He has a lot of control time in the octagon. So they said all they've been preparing is wrestling. This is 16 weeks of a camp of just wrestling. But Merab, like I said, he's been on Aljo's podcast. He said this guy has got everything to lose. He's going to give it his all. It's probably going to be the most improved, the best version of Sugar Sean we've seen. And still, he's not going to be able to get the job done.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's just a matchup nightmare for Sugar Sean. Like Merab, even though he's much shorter in terms of height, his takedown and pressure is just going to be too much for Sugar Sean. Every single time you've seen Sugar Sean struggle in the UFC, it's when he's versed someone that's taken him down. Whether it was Petr Yan and Merab, they're the two times where he's looked most vulnerable and he just looks like he's going to lose. And really, how much can Sugar Sean change in 1 year? It hasn't even been 1 year yet. He's been off with a shoulder surgery. He's been off with a shoulder injury. How much can he change? And Merab, I think he's got a point to prove to show why he's the greatest bantamweight of all time. And if he does this with a TKO finish or a submission finish, I think he'll just solidify that and there'll be no questions asked. And he actually might even move up after because who is there left after this?
I think, maybe one or two more fights in the bantamweight division before he thinks about moving up. And he said he doesn't want to face Volk. You know, he says he's a big fan of Volk. He couldn't fight him.
He says that till he probably gets offered the fight.
I don't think Volk wants to take that fight. If I'm
saying, but last thing on this.
Yeah.
Merab versus Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo is an Olympic gold medalist.
Yep.
And Merab treated him like a little boy. He was throwing him around the octagon.
Carrying him.
So with that information and knowing that he's done that to an Olympic level wrestler, how can Sugar Sean keep up? That's the thing I'm just going into this fight with. How can Sugar Sean keep up with Merab?
Well, I saw this on social media. This is unique. I don't think any fighter's ever done this. Sugar Sean is recreating an arena-like feel in his training sessions from the walkout to in the octagon, the crowd making noise. his cornerman yelling out instructions, going to his corner. Pretty much got a guy similar size to Merab. So this is ultimate preparation. He's trying to recreate what he's going to feel come this Sunday. But I just think even still, it's not going to be enough against Merab. I don't know if he's trying to emulate the crowd because maybe the sphere, it threw him off, this whole crowd arena. He got thrown off by the whole crowd interaction and, I don't know, people booing the fight or whatever it be. But he's really trying to recreate a fight-like experience. But the thing is, your opponent in there, the guy you're sparring with, he's not Merab.
That's
the guy cannot go 25 rounds. The guy does not have unbelievable wrestling and control time. And, you can stuff as many takedowns as you want in sparring and in this fake fight. But at the end of the day, can you do it against Merab in this arena in Newark?
This was just a glorified sparring session. As much as you can try and build it up as, this is lifelike, this is really what it's going to be like on Saturday in the octagon, it's just never going to be. And you ask any athlete in any sport, nothing will ever match the game day. Nothing will ever match the actual day you have to perform. And you can spar as much as you want. You can train as much as you want. Nothing's ever going to be as physically taxing as the actual fight or the actual game. So I understand his motives for doing this, but to release it as I'm doing the walkout, it was a bit corny.
Did the full walkout as well with the crowd making noise. I don't know if they had some noise piped in and there was people in there.
Did Tim Welch try and, mess with his sparring partner?
He was yelling instructions.
But to the sparring partner.
Great work, bud.
Was he saying it to the sparring partner?
Nah, he wasn't yelling at the sparring partner.
That's not realistic then. That's not realistic.
Fair enough. Now let's get into it. Tom Aspinall has come out and said, I don't know if you guys have seen, but Jon Jones is retired. He went on an interview with Chael Sonnen and Daniel Cormier, good guy, bad guy, and pretty much said he's got a fight day locked in, date and location, and it doesn't sound like it's Jon Jones.
Well, he made sure to mention that if you've looked at Jon Jones' lifestyle over the past few months, he's retired. Like, Tom Aspinall was looking at his life and saying, look, he's in Thailand, he's enjoying some time, I don't know who he's with.
Yeah.
But he's enjoying himself and he looks like he's a retired fighter. So he's now declared himself the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
And this comes as rumors are ramping up that he's set to face Cyril Gane. I don't know if that's going to be in UFC Paris. But to quote Tom, he says, Jon's retired. You guys don't follow Jon on social media? I'm the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world right now. I'm ready to take on all comers. So I think this is Tom Aspinall trying to change the narrative right now is he's not being the Michael Chandler. He's not waiting around for Jon Jones. He is the guy at heavyweight right now. He's at the top of the food chain in heavyweight, and he's going to take on every single person, whether it's Cyril Gane, Volkov. He says, I'm ready to be the face of this division, and that's only going to make this eventual Jon Jones fight big. I think that's very smart from him.
Well, to quote Tom Aspinall, he said, let's make the heavyweight division great again.
Wow.
So he's referencing Jon Jones. He's referencing Jon Jones being a duck and just holding the heavyweight division up by not fighting because the heavyweight division, I think for the past 5 years, we went through it last week, they've had like one title fight for the last 5 years every year. So it is a division with not a lot of activity. And when you really think of it, heavyweight fights, a lot of them don't go past the first round. So the winners should be fresh and ready to go again, at least in 3-4 months' time.
I was going to say, this also comes as Jon says he wants to fight twice before the end of the year. Now, it's currently June 4th, right? So he's got to get 2 fights in 6 months. I need a fight announcement pretty soon. And he's been teasing announcements, whatever it be, but he says ultimately UFC make the announcements. But if you're going to fight twice as a heavyweight in the space of 6 months...
It's doable.
It's very doable, especially with Tom Aspinall knocking everyone out within 2 minutes. But I'm saying we're going to hear an announcement pretty soon. You need to be on a card in July, you need to be on a card in August, and then maybe in December.
The thing is, though, if you're Jon Jones, you say, if Tom Aspinall fights Cyril Gane and then he loses to Cyril Gane, then I should never reverse Tom Aspinall in the first place. But the thing he actually doesn't understand, if Tom Aspinall does lose that fight, there goes your $30 million payday because you're not getting paid $30 million to face Cyril Gane again.
Yeah.
You're only getting paid $30 million because of the hype that Tom Aspinall can actually beat you. There's no other heavyweight right now that draws the same amount of attention that Tom Aspinall is. And there's not as much hype for a Jon Jones versus Volkov fight, Jon Jones versus Derek Lewis.
And you don't want
Who's
a
he gonna
Chandler.
face?
You don't want a Chandler. You don't want to, hey, I'm not going to wait around for Conor anymore. Give me Charles Oliveira.
It's actually so funny.
You know what I mean? And you just lose, and then give me Paddy Pimblett, and then you lose, and you spiral out. Now, I don't think Tom Aspinall is going to get knocked out or lose to any heavyweight. I think he's the best heavyweight in the world right now. But I'm just saying, you do run that risk. You lose that big payday. And I think Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones is the biggest payday in the UFC, probably for the last decade.
Yeah, definitely.
In some time.
Other than McGregor, this would be the biggest payday ever. But do you feel sorry for Michael Chandler? Now, anytime he's kind of having a bit of a sabbatical.
Everyone says you don't want a Michael Chandler.
You don't want a Michael Chandler. He's
Yeah.
just becoming that fighter that's known as, hey, you took too long and you wasted your chances.
Well, I don't know what happens to Michael Chandler next. I think it's like you do the Poirier retirement treatment because he's fallen into a losing streak.
Well, I saw that there might be a UFC Paris card later in the year.
And when he fights Benoit?
Fights probably
No
Benoit in
way.
Paris. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Benoit-
He's ranked higher than him. Benoit probably could do better from a fight against someone like Michael Chandler, a big name, to get him back in the top 10.
I guess we'll see.
It makes sense. I'm saying it makes sense.
Now, Ilia Topuria, the troll, one of the best trolls, I think, in the UFC right
Trolls
now.
or confidence?
It's confidence. Okay, yeah, but Ilia Topuria has asked his fans, what do you prefer? Me submitting him or me knocking him out? And he's showing himself doing some wrestling maneuvers, doing some submissions, and saying this shit just comes easy to me. If you want me to knock him out, I'll knock him out. But if you want me to submit him, I can submit him.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Ilia Topuria, by putting out a video on Twitter asking his fans, should I submit or knock out Charles Oliveira, is just the utmost confidence in himself. He's almost too confident, but it makes me respect it that much more. But in answering the question, as an Ilia fan,
personally, what do you want to see? A knockout or submission?
I want to see a knockout. I'm always a fan of a knockout. As much as I like Charles Oliveira, I do want to see him knocked out cold. It's not nothing against him.
Yeah.
I just like seeing knockout highlights, and this could be the potential
And
for a
imagine
great knockout highlight.
The knockout run that Ilia goes on, from knocking out Volk, knocking out Max Holloway, something that no one's done, and then knocking out Charles Oliveira. Like, that's just, you're in elite status.
That'll be the best 3-fight win streak probably ever. Because
Especially if it's a knockout.
you beat Volk, Holloway, and Charles Oliveira, 3 absolute legends of the sport, all by KO. I think he'll cement himself as maybe a top 10 fighter of all time. It might be early to say that, but a 2-division champion with 3 knockouts against 3 legends, what more can you ask of Ilia Topuria? He would be La Leyenda.
Yeah, well,
He actually might change his nickname for real this time.
he might actually become the legend. And then, okay, so let's just play devil's advocate. Say he knocks out Charles Oliveira. Does he call out Islam on the mic straight after? Is that what you?
I don't think
is
he
that
can.
best, or does he put the lightweight division on notice? Say he's gone. I'm the king of lightweight
I feel
right
like
now.
he's socially savvy and does understand that by calling out Islam, that'll get the most clicks and most attention. So I think he will do that.
And it would put a lot of pressure on Islam.
Well, if Islam loses to JDM, he probably will come straight back down and get a title shot. So it does make sense to still call him out, because if Islam does lose, because a lot of people think JDM's a tougher fight for Islam than people are expecting.
Have you been seeing the size of Ilia and Charles lately? The boys are looking jacked. They're looking a lot larger. Charles Oliveira's hitting the leg press machine like it's no one's business, just throwing around weight. Ilia's definitely a bit more top heavy now, lightweight.
He's yoked.
Yeah, he's still doing his sprints as well. It's just the jump up in weight for Ilia. You can tell he looks physically, he's filled out a lot more. So I think this is going to be, it's going to be perfect for him. And I honestly think he's going to be, maybe he has like maybe 5 more fights left, 3 or 4 more fights left in his career, because if he just goes on an absolute run, he's the type of guy, he says, I don't want to be around for a long time, that McGregor mentality,
I feel like every fighter says that.
and just retire at the top.
But it's their life. They love it. But staying in the lightweight division.
Yes.
Let's talk about the number 1 contender, the real number 1 contender, Arman Tsarukyan.
Yes.
Who has done a lot of interviews this week, whether it be about helping Khamzat in his preparation for his fight, or in reaction to his grappling match against one of the Pitbull family. But
Look, he's pissed off the UFC, and he knows that. He said that I really just have to do what the UFC say right now. The UFC have the shits with him, so he's been going around doing grappling matches and trying to stay active. Right now, he's going to be helping Khamzat get ready for DDP in Chicago. But he also says he wants to be the backup fighter for Ilia Topuria versus Charles.
So he's been doing a lot of media, been doing a lot of interviews, and in some of these interviews, he's saying, look, I've put my hand up. I want to be the backup fighter for Ilia versus Charles. If one of them pulls out, happy to slop straight in. But if that does happen, he also wants to face Gaethje or Dan Hooker in August or September. Now, he was supposed to fight in January.
Yeah.
He had an injury, whatever it may be. But I feel like it's long overdue
Back
since we've
spasm.
had an Arman fight.
bit of a back spasm with Nina.
Arman Tsarukyan hasn't fought since UFC 300. That's over a year ago. Like, you can't have your number 1 contender not fight for 1 year. And he says, look, the most likely scenario is I'm going to face Dan Hooker and Paddy Pimblett's going to face Justin Gaethje. So if he does beat Dan Hooker, does he go straight back to a title?
Arman versus Dan Hooker is a great matchup. Both of these guys don't like each other. They talk shit to each other before.
It's a great hype matchup, but I think Tsarukyan more.
But you know what? People were saying the same thing about Mateus Gamrot, and say what you want about Dan Hooker. He really stuffed those takedowns, and he stood up and beat him. So you can say it was a close matchup. Who knows? I think Arman just on another level with his grappling. And you can see he's training with the likes of Hamza. You've seen him win these grappling matches. The guy's a freak. He's definitely the true number one ranked, number one contender. So, look, I think it is best to get him active. UFC, stop punishing the guy. Give him a Justin Gaethje. Give him a Dan Hooker. And let him go for the title next. Him versus Ilia would be a great matchup as well. I just don't want to see it. I like both those guys.
I like both of them. But he's had 2 grappling matches this year already. So his back is obviously fine. He's not injured anymore.
Yeah.
Give him an actual opponent. I know Dan Hooker's got his hand injury, which is maybe preventing the fight from happening.
But he's been talking about a September possibly.
Yeah, but like
coming back in September.
But just make a fight happen, whether against Paddy Pimblett, whether against Gaethje, Dan Hooker. Just give him somebody because he needs to be active and needs to get back in that title picture. And I do think he's going to beat whoever's put in front of him. Besides, maybe Ilia or Islam. That's like they're the only 2 people who I think are better than him right now.
How much do you think he helps Hamza in his preparation?
Well, he spoke about this on the interview. He said, look, I'm a lot smaller, and when you're preparing someone for a fight, you don't want to injure them. So that's why Hamza might be sparring
he's
with lighter people,
Yeah.
less pressure on his joints, less pressure on Hamza when he's actually trying to do heavy sparring. And if Arman and Hamza are good mates, because they did that Russian TV show together, they could really elevate each other because...
He said, I'm going to give him advice on what I think we're going to learn from each other. He goes, and it's in the team, you learn from one of the best. I think it's mutually beneficial for both. And I'd be worried if I was DDP.
But when you watch fighters, they say, like, I want to spar with people that are like my future opponent. Arman is nothing like DDP. So how does it help, though? That's like, I'm not a fighter. I'm not in these camps. But shouldn't you be sparring someone that's, at least physically similar to DDP?
Yeah, but I mean, have you seen how ripped Arman is?
Yeah, but he's also like 3 feet shorter.
It's very true.
DDP's a big boy.
I'm sure he's got a couple of people in his team that are mimicking DDP, but how the fuck do you copy that style? You can't. You know what I mean?
You can't. No one has.
I'm trying to find a sparring partner like DDP. No one fights like him.
That's true.
It's awkward. Speaking of cards, UFC fans and probably MMA fans were disappointed by UFC in May. They thought the cards didn't live up to the hype. You know what I mean? They were lackluster cards. Then you had a fight night for the first time ever. The main event pulls out right before she's about to walk out. No one's ever seen that before. It was a UFC fight night in the Apex. Pretty crazy.
The month of May for the UFC was terrible. The cards weren't that exciting. And I feel the UFC knows this and have made up for it with a banger of a June.
It's going to be a huge June. Starting with Sugar Sean versus Merab. It's a rematch. We want to see, people think Sugar Sean's locked in. Could he get redemption? Then you got a great fight night. Joaquin Buckley versus a returning Kamaru Usman. Can the old bull beat the young cat? Does he still have it after, almost 2 years outside of an octagon? Pretty crazy.
Then we go to Khalil Roundtree versus Jamal Hill in Azerbaijan. This is a great light heavyweight matchup. Should be a banger of a fight. That's all in the month of June. And then to top it off, at the end of the month,
International Fight Week.
Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. You're getting 4 great fights in the month of June.
Yeah.
We are spoiled as fans this month. Let's enjoy it. And let's just say they're making up for a terrible, terrible May.
Yeah, it's going to be a banger of a June. I feel like UFC always do this. They kind of,
go through a bit of a lull.
And then bang, banger of a Miami card. You know what I mean? Or like go through a bit of a lull period. Then we're going into International Fight Week, which is a pretty stacked card in itself, with announcements to come. I mean, we don't know what else is going to be on the UFC Chicago card. We don't know what's going to be on Abu Dhabi. We're here in Volk. But look, I think June is going to be an absolute banger. You got 4 straight weeks of good main event fights. And, make sure you stay tuned to Trash Talk. We'll give you a good preview of it.
The question, though, I see online from a lot of fans is there's too much UFC now. Like, they're spread out across fight nights. There's realistically, Kamaru Usman, his fight, Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, they should be on an actual pay-per-view card. Having them on a fight night kind of worsens the pay-per-view cards. They could easily be on the main card
Co-main
of
or
a
main.
PPV. So it's like, yes, you're spreading it out across 4 weeks, but they should all... What would you rather? Would you rather it spread out across fight nights or just on one big pay-per-view?
Nah, look, I like it spread out. Do you know why? Because they got a deal to do with ESPN. The UFC's got to make money.
I'm not talking business. I'm talking as a fan.
No. But look, as a fan, it's like looking forward to a fight every single week. And you don't really care too much about the undercard or the prelims. But if you know you got a banger of a fight coming up every single week, and it's like when you watch the footy, like who's playing this weekend? Can I bet on anyone? Oh, Kamaru Usman's fighting. I'm gonna stick around and watch this fight. And hey, maybe I might put a multi on with these other prelim fighters. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
I think I prefer it being a bit spaced out.
All right.
You know what I mean?
That's fair.
With Merab fighting this week, let's look at the top 5 craziest Merab moments of all time. Now, when we say top 5 craziest, it's not inside the octagon. We're talking outside the octagon where the guy is just a nutcase, does what he wants, and I think, risks his life.
Pretty much every other weekend of his life when he's not training, he's somewhere in the wilderness risking his life. So that's just giving you a preview of these Merab kind of stupid moments.
Here's some of Merab's craziest moments, starting with shadow boxing on the ledge of a building outside. This is like he's on maybe a 40th story, right? He's looking down and he just starts throwing a high knee, shadow boxing out as he's looking down on some cars, and he gets back inside. The guy he has no fear. I don't think he has a fear of heights, but again, he's on the ledge of this building. Not the smartest decision.
The other stupid Merab moment, I think he was in downtown Las Vegas and he's just filming a fight. Now, if you watch the video, you see the fight first, and then Merab just pans to himself, smiling, kind of appreciating being a fan for a random street fight.
Stumbles across a random street fight.
And just in classic Merab fashion, just like filming it. No, I'm not going to try and break it up. I'm just going to film it and I'm just going to be a spectator. And it was just hilarious.
Now, he loves his Georgian dancing and he does it wherever, especially after a win. But this time he's doing it on the edge of a cliff. And his Georgian dancing, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it involves a lot of leg movement. And, he's jumping up and down on the edge of a cliff, almost falls off the cliff. He stumbles on a rock, almost falls back, almost falls off the cliff, gathers himself. Again, not the smartest thing to do, Merab, trying to do a celebration on the edge of a cliff. He seems pretty clumsy. That's another crazy Merab moment.
Now, we go to probably the craziest Merab moment.
Yeah.
This is Merab diving headfirst into a frozen lake. Now, obviously,
splitting his head open.
Where he's from, it gets cold and there are frozen lakes. And I think maybe he should be a bit more educated on when you can't penetrate the ice or when it's just icy water. But he thought he'll dive head first, and then you see him come out of the water a few moments later, and he's got a massive cut above his eye.
He's bleeding everywhere.
I think he may have had a concussion as well.
He says, what a stupid mistake. Yeah, it was. It was. But that's why we love Merab. And some honourable mentions I want to throw out there. Him riding a swing, only the way Merab would, and he's like crazy. Him trying to tame a horse, getting off the horse, and the horse almost kicks him in the head and drags him around.
Merab trying to cut out his own stitches on his eye.
And showing that on social media. And then I think one of the more funny ones is just a jet ski accident. He just rammed straight into another jet ski. Could have been bad, but only Merab could crash into a jet ski and make it funny.
And don't forget the one where I think he was like doing pull-ups on a cliff. Like for some reason, Merab's just hanging off a cliff doing pull-ups. It's like, really, should you be risking your life, Merab? I don't know if you should be doing that.
He's a daredevil. And that's why he's one of the best in the UFC right now.
But let's go now to our official UFC 316 preview and predictions.
Yes.
Starting with the first fight, Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland. How do you see this fight going?
Luque's a brawler, and he actually surprised me in his last fight. Kevin Holland, I feel like he's just cashing checks and just trying to stay as active as possible. He knows his role in the UFC is, hey, I want to have 5-6 fights a year and get paid. I think our friend Matty Betts has taken Kevin Holland by submission, which you don't really see much of. It's very particular.
It's a long shot.
He's also taken Patchy Mix by submission as well. He likes submission on this card. But look, I'm probably leaning towards Holland by decision. I think Vicente Luque, he's probably been a bit inconsistent in his UFC career, so I'm leaning towards Holland as a striker.
I was reading some other people's previews because it's hard on these fights because I think Kevin Holland, with his activity, you don't know what Kevin Holland you're going to get. Sometimes he gets finished early. Sometimes he looks great and looks like he could be a contender in the division. But if someone said, if this was 2021 Luque, you'd definitely take him probably by TKO. But with how inconsistent he's been, he hasn't really proven himself to be back in that form. And I think Kevin Holland, he doesn't want to keep this on the feet. He'll try and keep his distance, maybe shoot for a takedown. And I think that's why Matty Betts has taken him by submission. It's a 50-50 fight. I'm going to take Kevin Holland by decision as well. I think decision's actually a very good value bet in this fight as well.
Okay, next up we got Batista versus Patchy Mix. Now, this is after Cheeto Vera, pulled out of this fight. Patchy Mix, who has a great record in Bellator, 20-1, 3-time champion. He comes in to face Batista, and I'm going to be honest with you, everyone wants to see Batista lose, especially after that fight against Jose Aldo where they thought he didn't deserve the win. I think we're going to go lean towards Patchy Mix, a guy who's a bit more accomplished.
Yeah.
And I think some people are saying leaning towards submission. I'm actually going to take him. We'll go through our best picks. I'm going to take him by either submission or decision.
The thing with this fight is Batista is on a 7-fight win streak. And usually I do like when a superstar from another company comes over, but after Patricio Pitbull kind of put up that terrible performance against Yair Rodriguez.
In UFC, yeah, in Miami.
It's kind of ruined my confidence in these Bellator fighters coming across into the UFC because maybe the UFC is that step above. Maybe their fighters are better.
So you're second guessing everyone that's coming over from another promotion.
Exactly.
Aaron Pico, Patchy Mix.
I do have to second guess it now because, yeah, you were good in Bellator, but Bellator's not the UFC. And Batista on a 7-fight win streak, yes, maybe it wasn't the greatest showing against Jose Aldo, but he still has won 7 fights in a row. But in saying that, I'm leaning towards Patchy Mix. I feel like the UFC want him to win. They need to kind of build up a new star in the bantamweight division. And with Merab having no people to verse, they kind of need someone that's got a bit of a name.
But they kind of threw him in on short notice, like I said, after Cheeto Vera pulled out. But yeah, like you said, I'm leaning toward Patchy. I think it's probably an easy decision. He's very confident. He's coming out and said, I'm going to submit him. I'm going to show why I'm a class above these athletes. They're giving me this guy. I'm going to submit him, and then I'm putting the whole division on notice. So I'm going with Patchy Mix as well. Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison.
The first of 2 title fights on the card. I don't know if you know this is 2 title fights on this card.
That's huge.
But I think Kayla Harrison, just given her physique and fighting style, I think she's just going to smother and dominate Pena. I don't know if she's going to get the finish because her last fight in Utah, she didn't get the finish. It was very disappointing. So she might not get the finish, but I do think she's just going to do enough to get the victory.
Yeah, only when I bet on Kayla Harrison, she doesn't get the finish. But look, I will say, you can't sleep on Juliana Pena. She's coming in as a massive underdog. I feel like she's a massive outsider. Yes, she did beat Amanda Nunes, but Kayla Harrison is just a different beast. This woman is a judo champion, I think Olympian as well. She cuts down from 170 pounds. She walks around at 170 pounds.
It's a big cut.
It's a massive cut. So she's a kind of, I'm going to say Kayla Harrison via weight bully. Pena's been going at her saying she's a steroid cheat. It's the most lax the UFC have been on performance enhancers. Judging by Kayla's physique, I'm not going to discount her. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think she's just going to be too strong. I'm going Kayla Harrison to finish.
I do respect Pena's attempts at trash talk because for a female, she actually does quite a good job.
And yes, she gets people entertained in the fight. I mean, if you looked at that seasonal press conference, it was Merab, Sugar Sean, and Pena versus Kayla Harrison up on the stage. And who was making more noise? Juliana Pena.
She was getting the most.
She was making more noise than Sugar Sean.
And like the Amanda Nunes factor into this as well. Obviously, Pena's beat Nunes, and Kayla Harrison probably does want that Nunes fight as well. So I think Amanda has said she's going to come out of retirement and face the winner of this fight. So it does add a bit more stakes to this fight. But I do think Kayla Harrison will win. She'll just be too good.
And the main event, Merab versus Sugar Sean 2. Now, look, we're obviously friends with Merab. We're obviously, we've done skits with Merab. We're pretty friendly with Merab. So to remove any bias from this fight, I've asked ChatGPT to write up the prediction and preview, and this is what ChatGPT has to say.
Let it go.
Okay? While O'Malley has made commendable changes, Dvalishvili, relentless wrestling, and cardio present significant challenges for Sugar Sean. Unless O'Malley can effectively neutralize takedowns and capitalize on striking opportunities early, Dvalishvili is likely to retain his title. So, official prediction from ChatGPT on this fight: Merab via unanimous decision.
That's unbiased. Like, we didn't come up with this. This
I'm
is
not
purely
saying that.
AI. And AI, based on their analysis of the fight, has said Merab's just going to be too strong.
Yep.
Kind of what we said before, is just going to be too strong. And unless O'Malley can somehow neutralize these takedowns, it's going to be a Merab victory.
But that's a very accurate prediction, and I think some of the best in the sport are saying that. Unless Sugar Sean can catch him early, like he did Aljo, you know what I mean? Or unless Sugar Sean can neutralize the wrestling as much as he can and capitalize on his striking, he's going to lose by unanimous decision. That's why my pick, unbiased, is Merab to win by unanimous decision.
Okay, now let's go to our best bets for this weekend.
Yes.
UFC 316 best bets. I'm going with Merab head-to-head. I'm going Luque versus Holland to go the distance. I'm not picking a winner, just a fight to go the distance. It's 3 rounds. Let's get it to the distance. I'm going Patchy Mix head-to-head on debut in the UFC, and then I'm taking Kayla Harrison head-to-head. Great value. It should all get up.
Yeah, these picks are brought to you by Neds. Shout out to Neds. Thank you for sponsoring the show. My best picks for UFC 316, I'm going Merab to win by decision. Kayla Harrison to win head-to-head. I lost a bit of faith in her after she didn't get a finish last time. Patchy Mix to win by decision or submission. And I'm also taking Kevin Holland to win head-to-head. Kevin Holland does like to bounce back after a loss.
Got heavy hands.
He's got heavy hands, so I'm taking Kevin Holland to win head-to-head. I'm not going to pick decision or submission like some others have, but I'm taking Kevin Holland to win.
Hey, that's good.
So
value.
that's a 4-leg multi. Take it as you will. I think I like those.
And if you want to jam some favorites, Kayla Harrison, Merab, and Patchy Mix. I think you get them all three head to head. It'd probably be around $2.40, $2.50. That's like if you just want to hammer a short price favorite, those three are pretty good favorites to bet on this weekend.
Let's move over to the boxing world. There's been some noise being made. We're going to be in the Gold Coast this weekend covering Jai Opatai on the Gold Coast, a cruiserweight bout. If you have any questions you want us to ask these Aussie boxers, it's a pretty good Aussie card in the Gold Coast. They're going to do open workouts at Pack Fair, so we'll be there on the ground. But the one that's been making the most noise on social media, Teofimo Lopez versus Devin Haney has been announced for Saudi Arabia, August 16th. Now, if there's any other person that's going to talk more shit about Devin Haney other than Ryan Garcia, it's Teofimo Lopez. This guy, I think, is the most entertaining fighter in this division. He doesn't like Devin Haney. He's been calling him a bitch. Him and Ryan Garcia took a photo recently saying, hey, Devin Haney's father, right? Fathers, right? And I just think this is probably the way to go. After Ryan Garcia's performance, we don't want to see a rematch against Devin Haney. Teofimo Lopez is the way to go. I think he's going to make this the most entertaining it's been.
So the fight is official now. Turkey or Shake's all good with it?
Yeah, I mean, Turkey and Teofimo, they'd been going at it on Twitter. Teofimo said he got fired by Turkey just for his comments about Turkey Al Sheikh. He's since apologized. I think they've patched things up, and they have now announced that Haney versus Teofimo Lopez is official for Saudi, August 16th. How do you see that fight going? I honestly, just based on activity in the ring, I'm taking Teofimo Lopez, and I wouldn't be surprised if Teofimo comes in as favorite.
Look, it's boxing doesn't make sense because didn't Teofimo lose to Kambosos?
Teofimo lost to Kambosos.
Kambosos lost to Haney.
Yes.
So realistically, Haney should beat Teofimo. Is that how it should work?
I mean, yeah. If you're talking about who beat who, yes.
But that doesn't always make sense. So you never know. And I feel like Devin Haney, since that loss to Ryan Garcia.
Why are you doing that for? He did lose.
Is it on his record?
It's not on the record.
It's not on the record, so I've just got to put it in the air quotes. Since that loss, though, he kind of hasn't been the same fighter. And even in that fight in Times Square, he was just evading the whole time. It was so boring. So I think for the entertainment factor, I want Teofimo Lopez to win to show that Devin Haney's boxing style just isn't the way to go about it.
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be an entertaining fight. I'd love to be on the ground there and cover that. I think that's a wrap for us there. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube at KRoos Bros and stay in tune to the clips on TikTok at Jon-Bernard K and on Instagram at Jon-Bernard K. We're going to give it a wrap there. Back to you in the studio, Ryan.